The Ensemble podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. This content is created in partnership with our sponsor, Net Wealth Investments Limited, ABN 85090 569 109, AFSL 230975, and is limited to publicly available information. Before acting on any general advice, you should consider whether appropriate and obtain financial advice from a qualified financial advisor. Ensemble does not hold an AFS license and does not provide any financial advice or services or endorse any general advice. If a PDS or IM exists, you should obtain a copy and review it thoroughly before making a decision.
AdviceTech. As if it wasn't enough to be across TMDs, Alpha, Beta, Rule of 72 and all the other nuances of financial advice. Now advisors are expected to be across all the technology options too, and there's so many of them. But never fear, Peita D is here. Join me each week on a journey of discovery through the software and apps on offer for advisors and advice businesses. So let's dive in, fellow advice explorers.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by NetWealth. Imagine a world where you can offer clients access to local and international investments. A world where you can engage with clients meaningfully, backed by powerful data and insights with mobile-friendly technology. A world where you can build business efficiencies through scaled managed accounts and bulk reporting. And a world where you can get all the latest news, research and insights to spot the changes that really matter. Wealth is more than just money. It's about opportunity and progress. A world of opportunity awaits you at netwealth.com.au/woo.
Hello and welcome to the XY Advice Tech Podcast. I'm Peita Diamantidis, and the guest joining me here today to deep dive into advisor ratings is a Parramatta Eels fan, and we'll forgive him for that, was once a financial analyst like myself, and in fact took part in the Australian Digital Currency Commerce Association, a very long acronym it has. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, Angus Woods. Woo!
Oh, hello, Peita. I finally get to be on the show. I'm so excited. And I love I love the lead-in music to this podcast as well. So one of the
fun,
most
isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, really fun, really fun. We didn't go too corporate there, which I love.
And you shouldn't. You're tech, so.
Exactly. Alrighty, so we're going to dive into all things advisor ratings, but let's just get to know you a bit better through the tech you use.
Yep.
What is your most used emoji? Do you even use emojis?
I do. I'm a bit of an emoji fiend. I've been using emojis. Well, I got told off by my mates many years ago for using it too often, but I don't mind. So I think it, I think it creates a little bit of fun and a little bit of emotion for us all to sort of engage with each other a bit better. So yes, I'm a bit of an emoji fan. And I know you'd asked me this question because it was a prelim question coming in here. The emoji that I used to use a lot, obviously, and it's the generic one that I think everybody uses, is the thumbs up, but I've moved away from that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much in the vein of the heart emoji, and I know that might sound a little bit trite, but coming from an industry where we all seem to care about each other, and coming from an industry where, there is an element of a lot of small businesses that are operating. That heart emoji, I think, speaks to a lot of element around not just obviously the love that you would say a heart emoji to your wife or your kids, but it also talks to the care factor, as founders as well, especially you're going through hard days, and it's also good to have that emotional connection with someone that they go, you know what, I care for you. I actually understand where you're coming from. You've taken the time and effort to respond to me, or you've taken the time and effort to write a post. So just a thumbs up to say, well done, mate. That's great. Don't get me wrong. I use a lot of thumbs up, mates. But, I've sort of moved more into, if I really think it warrants it, which I think a lot of it does, I've moved more into the heart emoji.
Oh, nice. I'm a bit the same, actually. I like the ones with a bit more warmth or energy, something that just sort of really transmits how you're feeling. So I like it. I'm right there with you. All right. So I don't want to freak you out too much, but let's imagine you had to take everything off your smartphone. All of it, and only 3 could you retain. What were the 3 apps you think you'd keep?
Yeah, I wish I could be really eccentric on this, but I'm quite functional in my in what I do. So I could probably give away, believe it or not, email in terms of, at least on my phone, because I've morphed more into a Slack person. The Slack is something I definitely need to do just because of from a day-to-day interaction with my staff.
Yeah.
The other one, given I travel a lot, would be Uber. So getting around, making sure that I'm coming to meetings on time. And I know some of you listening to this will go, Angus, you're never on time, but I'm trying to get better. So the Uber app, I've tried all the other apps when it comes to travel, and I think that one's the one that I always seem to keep relying on. And Spotify, believe it or not, I've become very much a podcast sort of guy. I'm listening to one podcast that Dante DeGori got me onto, the former CEO of the FPA, who's now heading it up overseas, but is How Other Dads Dad. So I'm trying to improve myself at the moment with the Hamish Blake podcast, but I get that from Spotify. So I like to, when I exercise, use Spotify. So probably those three apps are the ones that are staples in my life.
If there's anything that I think could teach all of us in this industry that there's so many voices and ways we can communicate, it's the depth and breadth of podcasts that are out there, not about money, just about stuff. Like it's just so broad and so interesting and so unusual. And it's like, there's a lesson, those people have an audience, and a big one, most of them. So we could too, if we communicate that well and we can tell stories.
Well, obviously this one is now a staple of mine, Peita, and I'm not just saying that. So there you go. Storytelling is one of the things hopefully we as a business do quite well, because I think, to have a business, you have to be a good storyteller.
Yeah, I think so too. To connect, right? That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
All right. So let's talk about advisor ratings. For those that maybe aren't aware of what it is, let's sort of take a step up, it's sort of a bit back. Where do you guys fit in the sort of tech or advice tech space? What category do you fall under?
Well, it's interesting. Fundamentally, we're a lead generation tool. So think of us as a marketing tool. That's plainly and simply. I'm not going to try and say that we're nothing more than that at the moment, but there will be an element that we are moving towards, and we could probably cover that later. But we are a lead generation tool for financial planners, and it's about getting reviews, it's about getting recognised, it's about the industry getting recognised. We know that 95% of people that see a financial advisor are well looked after. There are some bad experiences out there, but really it's really showcasing the value of seeing a financial advisor. So it's a repository for all the information on financial advisors in Australia and for consumers to connect with advisors.
Perfect. And there's not really many similar out there. I mean, there's not many doing this sort of, across the industry, bringing them all together. I guess the associations have sort of played with that, but really you guys are the few that I'm, one of the only that I'm aware that are doing this on such a big scale. Yeah,
well, I think, I guess you look at from a review point of view, the competition would be people like Facebook and Google, but, they're peripheral in terms of just at the 5-star moment. They don't do a lot of the verification of veracity, as for those small businesses that know that they've suddenly been hit with a 1-star review. They have no idea who Joe Bloggs has suddenly been, and then getting that taken down from Google is very difficult. So that's sort of one competitive landscape aspect. And then you've got the marketplace, which is I'd call the find an advisor tools. And we wanted to create a better experience, or a single place where consumers feel comfortable that they can go to. I always use the analogy here, Peita, when people ask me, so is it like Rotten Tomatoes have you heard of Rotten Tomatoes?
I live in Rotten Tomatoes, massive movie fan. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm a massive movie fan, so I always go to IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes before I go into a movie. That will determine whether I sleep through it or not. But so Rotten Tomatoes has two parts of their review website. It has the critics review, and the critics look at things like cinematography and things, all the has that got the emotive element that you really want, and look at it from that perspective. And I like to think that's what we do at Advisor Ratings. We go deep on some of the data, and we get to the crux of the advisor's qualifications, experience, advisors' expertise, those sorts of things. We scour the net to make sure that we're comfortable around the quality of advice of around that advisor, and then the consumers will have their own view. blow them up. There was the great kissing scene in that scene and all of these sorts of things. It made me feel really good. I came out of it feeling pumped. And so they'll have their own perception of what constitutes a good quality movie. So think of it like that is how I always use that analogy. So that's where this sort of that's where this program really comes into play.
Yeah, okay. And what caused advisor ratings to be born? What was the trigger point, or what was the thing that turned it into something that you guys were doing in this really proactive sort of structured way?
Yeah, good question. Really, it was so two things. I'll answer that in a two-pronged approach. One was really off the back of the GFC. We saw the issues around advice, the disparate nature around quality advice. You had strong financials and those sorts of things. So we wanted to create a place where I think all the data was synthesized in one spot, and all the information and all the advisors were all in one spot. So yes, the FBA had their thing, the AFA had their thing. All those sort of dealer groups, whether it be AMP at the time, and the banks had their fund and advisor solutions, but there was no one that was purely, I would say, independent, but also not deep, looking at it from a deep angle perspective. So that's why we wanted to create this single place for, and I was always, coming from this background, I always wanted to ensure that, people would set themselves up for life and be comfortable in terms of who they would relate with, who they would correspond with. So that's how I answered that from that universal financial planning sense. But in addition, I originally looked at this business model from a doctor's point of view. So I come from a really deep medical family. So, and sort of the same issues exist. Who are the good doctors? Who aren't the good doctors? Where do I go to see a really good GP? Who do I go to see a good specialist or referral partner? If I've got a heart issue, if I've got a colorectal issue, if I've got whatever it is. And there was no, there was no single point of clarification around that. Now, I hate to say this, but it's changed now. But 12 years ago, when I was looking at this, the AMA were a little bit difficult to work with in terms of trying to get there. And also there was a bit more stricter regulations around that element of testimonial websites. Now that has been relaxed since. So that's where I was looking at. And also, so I melded the two really. I thought, okay, I like business and planning. I come from a business investment background. My family comes from a medical background. How can we bring the two together? And I looked at it from the context of this goes through our organisation. There's this woman that our core data product is based off is called Florence Nightingale. I'm sure everyone knows Florence Nightingale. Yeah. She's the founder of nursing. So she, in Scutari, her hometown, she was looking at the Crimean War hospital stats.
Yep.
So she was looking at things like sanitary methods. She was looking at which soldiers were dying at which points in time, what were their war wounds like, and those sorts of things. And she was really focused on using her statistical and her nursing background to actually better care in the hospital, to get better care in the hospital. So to extend survival rates and good quality care at the hospitals, not just then in Albania, but also then globally. And that became adopted across the globe in terms of standard quality care for hospitals. So I had this ambition to do the same in financial planning. Yeah. So awesome. That's sort of where it all comes out. It's a long-winded way of saying that's where the whole sort of 10-year journey has come from.
Okay. And so an informed consumer is good for everybody. And you're right. It's so hard. Like if I think about my husband's a carpenter, he's a chippy. And the minute, like we can be at a networking event that he's popped in to maybe pick me up, and it'll be some industry thing. Somebody hears he's a chippy, they don't even know me, and they'll be asking for his card. The desperate need to connect with people that are connected to somebody else just because we need the expertise, I think is similar in advice, and to inform people such that they can do proper research, like actually get to almost know somebody before they reach out, is so powerful instead of this, random referral or just randomly picking somebody because they're, you walk past them at the shops or they've, storefront or whatever it is. I think I love the idea of really giving consumers information, real information on who these advisors are and it's almost matchmaking, right? I mean, that's sort of what it becomes. It's a matchmaking exercise.
Well, we still know that this is a singular sort of relationship for most people in their lives. They don't, switch and change. Most people don't switch and change advisors unless they've had a really dire experience.
Yep.
But then at the end of the day, there is that element of, I want to know a little bit more about who I'm basically going to get married to. So if there is an element of that, if there is some pre-dating material that you can look at to go, okay, have they got the same element of, you know what, my neighbour down the road or my mum-in-law may not have the same value sets as I do, yet I'm being referred to that advisor.
Right.
So this is just basically gives you a choice to ensure that, okay, well, that referral, I'm going to put them on my list of people to see, but you should be seeing 3 or 4 at any one point in time.
Yeah.
And that happens, that happens in any professional industry. It happens, it should happen in the carpentry industry with your husband.
Correct.
So, yeah, definitely.
And I think in our, advisors, we can get a bit sensitive to that, thinking people are shopping around on price. And I just don't think that's what it is. This is if we think about it more as matchmaking, this is about a vibe. And they just need to get the right vibe. And that doesn't mean that other person is a bad person. It just means the vibe is off. It doesn't quite match, It's just all it is. Right?
Exactly. I've been open. I see a life coach regularly, and it took me ages to find the right person that I gelled with and that I want to speak with on a day-to-day basis that I open up to. But the same with doctors. Like I'm again, going back to my medical analogy, I'm always asking family and friends and I will shop around from the doctor's perspective when it comes to someone I feel really comfortable with. It's the same sort of relationship. You're going to tell your doctor something or the specialist something that you feel that you wouldn't tell anybody else.
Yeah.
So, and Peita, the hands are in the power of the advisors at the moment because there's so many consumers wanting to speak to somebody. The amount of volumes or leads coming through our platform is out of control and they're all being turned away. So, that's one of the challenges I think we as a platform face is how do we start to making sure that we can put them into the, hands of the right people, whether that's new advisors into the industry to try and get them a leg up, because everyone needs, I think, ultimately help with financial advice or planning at certain stages in their life. But if it starts earlier, the better, then great.
Yeah.
For
sure. So then in terms of, so clearly, I mean, we're sort of discussing what it means to the consumer. From an advisor's perspective, then what is their experience, then setting themselves up on the platform?
Yeah, the main thing here is, as I said, a lot of this comes down to being a validation tool.
Yep.
So we don't, because we don't have a monetary model on the front end, i.e. we don't get advisors to pay for where they're positioned on our website. We don't get advisors to basically pay for a lead, nor do we do consumers. It's more about once you get a referral, that person's going to check you out online, and they're going to check you out on your LinkedIn profile. If you've got one, hopefully they're going to check you out on your advisor ratings profile. We know they do because we get about 2 million profile views a year.
Okay.
And even if and retaining those clients, clients, believe it or not, will be in the background looking at you, even though they will say, yeah, thanks, Peita. I think, thanks for that. That was a great experience. They will hear something in the media about financial planning, which is often sometimes negative. They'll just sometimes go and have a trigger moment to go, actually, I'm just going to check Peita out again.
Right.
I'm going to have a look at if they've done anything, those sorts of things. So they're constantly looking at your profile, irrespective of even if you've got a deep, good relationship with them. And then obviously there's the lead gen side. Don't get me wrong. There are those that have no idea, that don't have a relationship with anybody, that would actually prefer a third party review website to be the place that they can go and speak with someone because they don't like, and no offense to hopefully we've got no 95-year-old advisors. So that's why I'm picking 95 years old. But, you know, if my grandma and says, go and see Uncle Joe, he's a financial advisor and he's 95 and he's not up to speed and he's still doing things in Excel, that you sort of, those referrals probably aren't the referrals you're sort of looking for, as a consumer.
Absolutely. So then you guys sort of confirm who the advisor is, the details, background. I'm assuming that's education, that sort of stuff. It's like, let's just make sure they are who they say they are. Then beyond that, is there any capacity? So any capacity for the advisor to add more materials, to provide any context or, that sort of stuff? What's the next level?
Yeah. So think of it like if I'm an advisor, I've just joined the industry, or I'm an advisor and I go, I've heard about this advisor ratings platform, I should jump on there. There is the financial advisor register. So if you're a retail financial planner in Australia, your license, if you're a license owner yourself, you have to put this onto the financial advisor register. That has an open API, and there's a few companies that use that. We are one, so we get all that data, and we have a team of about 12 people that clean that up, that make about 15,000 changes every month, because that data, it's a bit like filling out your LinkedIn profile. Someone will do it, and then they'll do set and forget, and they won't ever update it again, even though you're legally obligated as a license to actually change that. Unfortunately for ASIC, they don't have the policing in place to go, is that data accurate? And I can tell you it is highly inaccurate if you're a consumer. But if I'm an advisor, you need to do that anyway. But then we basically encourage advisors to come into our environment to then, I was going to use the word not embellish, but to make your profile flourish it a little bit more richer in terms of ensuring that what you're articulating to the end consumer is who you actually are. Right. This is a relationship game. So we check all those things like standards, memberships, qualifications, and then we get you to sort of go, well, whilst you're there, why don't you upload some of your YouTube videos? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? What's your expertise? What are you actually really good at? Are you, are you a post-retired type advisor? Tell us a little bit about your clients. Tell us a little bit about your FUA. That then helps us do a lot of the, as you were saying at the outset, a lot of the matchmaking. Right. So if we've got a consumer at the front end, we can play around with the filters. So we go, okay, well, Peita is more likely to be matched with these 10 advisors, for example. The consumers can drive that as well. They can go, well, hang on, I don't necessarily want an advisor my age. Believe it or not, most advisors want someone their own age because they can relate to them more. But they might go, I want someone that's 30-year-old tech savvy, that's, basically knows everything about the world of, Tesla shares, Facebook shares, and that's those sorts of things.
They're into crypto. I want to do crypto. Whatever it is.
No, exactly. Well, So maybe, unfortunately, at the moment we haven't solved that one yet, but or fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you view that. But yes, in short, we get advisors to tell us a little bit more about themselves and to enrich their profiles. That also helps us from an SEO point of view. When I say us,
and them, presumably,
and them, yeah. So sorry, I mean the collective us, as opposed to advisor ratings. The collective us, i.e., the industry gets elevated on Google. You get to see, you become a bit of a thought leader. Your existing clients go, oh, okay, wow, Peita, I've seen you there. I've seen that you're representing the industry in a way, and I love the way your brain thinks, and I love what you're putting out there, and I love that my money is in your hands.
Yeah, so, perfect. And so there'll be a lot of things, I'm betting, that somebody could so a consumer could search on. One potentially could be location. Do you guys have the capacity to match because there's more and more virtual practices now, right? So do you guys have the capacity to cope with that too?
Yeah, we've just launched face-to-face online. So what do you prefer if you're a consumer, if you just prefer online? We've also implemented, we'll keep refining our filters based on user experience. You can, as you know, you can be so feature heavy on certain things. This is the one thing I always say to software tech providers, and I'm guilty of it. I put my hand up myself. You build these features and no one ends up using them. So you're getting a little bit better there, but you can filter on, things like gender. You can filter on experience or expertise. Whether, as I said before, whether you're very good at margin lending or you're good at potentially, I'm actually quite good at derivatives or options, helping you with options or protecting your portfolio, around tax, around budgeting, cash flow, all of those elements. And we've also implemented things like, languages spoken. How many languages do you speak? Which languages do you speak? That was one of the big feedbacks that came through from consumers, especially how multicultural we are. People want different types of advisors that speak different languages. So, the online digital experience, whether you want to transact in a different way than, having the advisor drive out to your home or you driving out to the advisor. So, there's different filters that we're building in, but we tweak them. We go, okay, which one's being used more, which ones aren't, those sorts of things. So.
Right, okay. And I think, I love the idea of languages being one, because I think it's, our industry is not as diverse as it could be, but we should celebrate the people that can connect with this broader multicultural part of Australia. We've always been a bit weak on that in financial services, but if they've got those skills, they need to be doubling down on them. Extra languages are so powerful. Like, that's just fantastic as an advisor. They may, and I think some people may not even, like, they recognize that that's a skill they have, but I'm not sure they understand that potentially they could be the one that can serve those clients. Yeah, it really could be that rare.
Yeah, we see more and more, especially, how do I say this delicate? I won't say delicately, where, the average stats is we're a 50-year-old white male advisor in the metro cities. Whereas you see coming through the universities now, you're seeing all types of,
Absolutely.
you're seeing those of Indian heritage, those of Chinese heritage, even the Italians and the Greeks coming through out of the paraplanning world and those sorts of things, who bring us such a diversity and can potentially open up that angle of advice to a reflection of more the type of Australians that we want getting advice.
Correct. And I think what I love about it too is we might think that, well, really, is it that different? Say they speak English. Do they need that? It's more than language. This is about understanding.
Exactly.
It's understanding their culture, how they come at things, even their paranoias. I mean, not only is my husband a chippy, but he's Greek, and there's in parts of his extended family, there's this paranoia about certain things with money, and to understand that innate thing, if that proved to be a cultural thing, that's powerful. And it's really important as context for client conversations.
Yeah,
so, I think celebrating that is fabulous, and diversity of all types, really powerful.
And hopefully, Peter, at the end of the day, people come to a website such as ours, if you're looking to get into the industry, and go, okay, these guys have actually thought about that, and it's great that, it's being a little bit more universal in that respect.
Perfect. So in terms of then, there must be some practices or advisors you see that really, really use the tool well. You feel like it's just not something that's static to them. It's dynamic. What are they doing? Like what does it look like when an advisor really gets on their game with advisor ratings?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So those that do exceptionally well are probably those regional practices that have a little bit more tech savviness than, say, the fellow advisor down the road. So that they tend to get a lot of attraction because the competition in those regional areas are a lot smaller. And the fact that obviously there's actually become higher affluent sort of non-metro people that have moved into the country, whether it be farmers and the like, in terms of setting up. So what they've been doing really well is really pinpointing what they're good at and talking to their individual community.
Yeah.
So if I'll take some advisors that I know in WA. They're really, being a mining state, they really understand, things like the way they position themselves and the content that they've got on our website that is very much around understanding what the mining sort of situation means to them, and they put out video content around that. They put out things like understanding managed funds that are exposed to those sorts of things, because their constituents do care about that.
Yeah.
As opposed to, and then you go, I think it's really talking to what constituents that you want in your area. I'm speaking very political here, but it is a bit of a political sort of minefield in terms of being an advisor. And we talked, I think someone said this at the FPA conference, I think it was Danny Visser from the XY, talked about as an advisor now, it's really about understanding the politics of your client base as well. So understanding those sorts of things and articulating what you stand for, but as an advisor and as a person and as a value set. So that is who's winning the race in terms of leads and who's doing really well and who's engaging. It's the personal, I'd say it's the personal element beyond just here's what the markets did overnight. Here is how I can help you. Here is how I can help you retire. It's actually talking to you as an individual, but also acknowledging your values may not be the same as some of the values of your clients. So just acknowledging that as well. Everyone's going to have a debate. I have a debate with I'm a different generation to my parents and my mum, and I often have these debates, Peter, and I won't tell you which side of the fence I lean on, but I have these debates, but it's also acknowledging that, as an advisor, you're going to have acknowledge that values is an important consideration set.
It is. And it's something that probably, like you say, I mean, a value exercise or business values and things like that, people might have experienced if they've been in a big corporate, right? And generally it's quite a dull and dry exercise. But in small business, they may not have done it. And so to sort of explain, like all of us have like 30 or 40 of these things. Like they're sort of what frame our character and our personality and who we are. All you're really looking for is that 4 or 5 that overlap. It's something that consistently overlaps with the type of clients you get. It doesn't have to be all 40, it's just those key ones that resonate. It's finding that, and I think that's important, because I think some people are like, like if it's exactly like me, then won't that narrow it down? No. What are your 4 or 5? What are the things that are really meaningful that are meaningful to the clients, that work well with you, that you enjoy, that they enjoy, that sort of thing? How do you frame that better? The
moment you can have that dialogue where you feel comfortable with someone, they're going to tell you a lot more about themselves, and you're going to tell yourself, you're going to tell them a lot more about you. And then there's
absolutely.
And then they can get to understand, you as an advisor can get to understand, okay, what really is important to this person that I can help them with. So,
in terms of somebody, anything they could do before they sort of dive in to really enhance their profile, is any homework or anything that you think, gee, if you just took the time to do this and this beforehand, it would help?
To a certain extent, I'd have a look at who does it well. Have a look, fish around on the Advisor Ratings website. Have a think about which clients that you have a deep relationship with, that you feel comfortable with talking to. This is the one area I think is the biggest feedback I get from advisors is I don't want clients reviewing me. I feel it's intrusive. I feel like very uncomfortable, and I get that. I feel a bit the same when with Google reviews. I've only got 6 of them, by the way. But in terms of getting signed, but it's your way of telling. Think of it as your way of telling your clients and telling prospective clients a little bit about you. So I think most clients, if you've got a good relationship with, break out of that anxiety. And at least get the ball rolling with a couple that you actually feel comfortable with, is what I'd say. Is going, I'm thinking of getting my Advisor Ratings website up and running, my profile up and running. Obviously, if you do have a team, help them with things like having the appropriate photo that's up there that makes you look appealing. Don't get me wrong, one's still got that a factor that, I want to engage with someone that feels warm and friendly and those sorts of things. So those sorts of things do count. Making sure the tone of the tone of what you put up there from an introduction perspective is the right tone for you.
Yeah.
So, whether that's working with someone internally, if you're going, well, I'm not a great writer, there might be a good copywriter that's a mate of yours down the road, or even within your team. So those are the sorts of things you should start to do. in terms of how do you want to present yourself to the world. So,
and it is, look, I'm right there with everybody where, I love having great feedback. Like I love it when we do that. But the next bit of would you mind, that next step is hard. However, dawn broke for me, and it was only recent, if I'm perfectly honest. I won't go to, sorry, this is not your everyday restaurant where you just sort of walk in. If I'm going to go somewhere nice, I won't go unless I can look at reviews. And I'm like, wait a minute, Peita. If you won't go to a good restaurant without looking at reviews and the menu, then what are you thinking? Clearly this is how we all behave now. This is how we all choose where we holiday, where we stay, where we, all that sort of stuff. So, I think it's probably, I'm guessing that the people that do this will just make it part of the experience in the process. So it sort of just becomes automatic almost. Yeah. It's the next step. This is what we do.
Well, they do, and most practices have a client engagement mechanism that's already
right.
Either from their licensees or from their, they just want to basically improve how they should be running the practice. So my view is, can you incorporate this into an existing process? And if it's a new process, I think consumers these days, from where you were 10 years ago, I'm bombarded with, can you leave a review every time I leave a hotel, every time I leave a restaurant. Even my doctors now ask me, through HotDoc or what have you, can you basically present your experience? And so I know that's part and parcel of everyday life these days. And I think as small business owners, we're used to it. Consumers are used to it now. It's not daunting like it may have been 10 years ago to feel uncomfortable asking for someone to actually do that. But if you are going to do it, why not just do it and incorporate it into an existing process or an existing conversation? Because if you've got that relationship, your clients will be more than happy to do that, give you that feedback.
And it's interesting. I noted this with a place actually we went to in Hawaii just before COVID, would you believe? We were in COVID when it all went nuts here in Australia with toilet paper. And I thought you guys were all crazy. And what's going on with toilet paper? This is ridiculous. And what they did well was they, we're leaving the fun thing we did, and they're asking us, oh, how was it? Did you enjoy this? Oh, how did you find that? Some people, and we're like, oh, no, that was really good. We really enjoyed that. And they connected that to the review of, oh, if you do a review, would you mind mentioning that? So they, and it was their thing that they know either people struggle with or that they really value and they're all looking for. And so it helped the review or the feedback go even faster, because I went, oh yeah, good. Clack, 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 clack. 3 sentences done. Whereas when somebody says, oh, can you give me a testimonial? Like, oh, they're really good. I like them a lot. Like it's this horrible, awkward process.
And the one thing, and just on that, Peita, the one thing advisors do get nervous about is maybe that disgruntled client that's come out of the woodwork in the past, or there's someone that didn't quite have the experience that they should have or could have, or they view things differently from you.
Yep.
So that's really good feedback for you to actually address. And also, because we're like most review websites, you have the last right of reply to go, I'm sorry you felt that way. So that empathy that comes through in terms of responding to negative feedback is actually really powerful. And you actually get more, believe it or not, advisors who have had the occasional negative review, 1 or 2, are getting far more leads than those who have a consistent 5-star rating with no bad feedback.
Yeah.
1, it looks more genuine. 2, you get to actually showcase the fact that how do you deal with adversity? How do you deal empathetically with someone that hasn't had that experience? And it also gets you to think about your practice processes and something that, you've missed. But it gets you to go, oh, publicly I can respond to that, and people will see me addressing that issue up front. So don't be afraid to get out there and get amongst it. And then suddenly if someone does come out of the woodwork, because someone will, unfortunately, someone will, and then you'll be on the back foot. So why not get on the front foot and do it first with the 100 clients that love you? So
absolutely. And is there anything that you feel like even your current users don't quite take advantage of enough in the tool? Is there something that you're like,
we've implemented a few things to try, and again, that thought leadership to try and ensure that. So that's that, ensuring that you're putting your videos up there, making sure that you're monitoring and getting onto your profile, even if it's logging in and changing your intro and that. because what that does is Google will crawl you and index you on our website and ensures that whilst we do what we can in the background, it ensures that you're maintaining relevance. The other thing is we've implemented a re-review process. So it's not just getting a client to review you and then it's set and forget. It should be part of your sort of process every couple of years. We would say every 2 years. You could do it every year. I think it's every 12 months we can, but say every couple of years saying, does this review still stand? Can you basically update it for me, please? Ensuring that. So there's a history of the same clients that are coming through and reviewing you and ensuring that you're still upholding the relationship, upholding your, upholding the, I hate to say it now, the opt-in mechanisms now that you're all obligated to do. And that's a good way of them also saying, can we also, whilst we're opting into the fees for the year, can you also opt into, ensuring that I'm looking after you as a client from a review point of view? So those are the sorts of things that we're doing. We've also got social media integration now, so you can actually post in a nice, delicate way that you can post all your reviews through your own channels. So
nice.
So that helps from an optics perspective as well, in terms of, as I said, ensuring that you're putting yourself out there. And that
I think the refresh thing is a really important point that, I realized once I started focusing more on LinkedIn is how bad a lot of LinkedIn profiles are, because they just get out of date. Let's ignore what's written. That's different, but they can get woefully out of date quite fast, right? It can happen quite quickly. Whereas if you do it once and you could say, all right, I'm going to update, get all the info into my advisor ratings. Well, then I'd recommend also making sure your LinkedIn profiles is good, right? So it should all be consistent and have the similar sort of energy and messaging, but then also just scheduling to update on either front makes such a difference, and people comment on it.
And I would say don't do. I would say don't do necessarily advisor ratings in isolation. You're right, Peter. Do take a day, or not maybe you, but take half a day out of your days to go, I need to get my public profile assets all up to date. Whether that's if you've got a company Facebook profile, if you've got a LinkedIn profile, those who use Twitter. I'm not a Twitter person, but I do. I'm a voyeur when it comes to Twitter. But some people might have ultra high net worths that use Twitter quite a bit. All their clients are on Twitter. So go where your clients are and make sure that you're putting something out there and making sure that you've got nice assets. And when I say assets, your photos that you're presenting up there, your introductory sort of elements and those sorts of things. So do it all in one hit rather than sporadically going and then having a consistent plan in place.
Yeah. And look, even for even if you're, you might be a small practice or even, you're working in a practice and they're not going to get photos done, or like all of that seems like a big deal and difficult. There's even websites like, I think it's Simply Headshots, which is basically online. They teach you how to take photos with your phone of yourself and then they tidy them up, give you a decent background, and they're actually really good looking headshots. So there are solutions here that are not expensive. You don't need to go crazy with a photographer, but updating those and then being current of how you look is really important, because it's a trust factor. Because if the person meets you and you look significantly different to your photo, it's not great,
No, exactly. You're making me feel guilty because I think I need to update my LinkedIn photo that's now about 6 years old.
Well, maybe you haven't changed a wink. It's all right.
I certainly know that's not the case, Peter. I was at the FPA conference and I had a few you look different from your LinkedIn profile. Oh, okay, so maybe it's time to update it. So it wasn't like you look better than your LinkedIn profile either. It was like you look different. No. That's when different. Okay, well, I've aged a bit, but as we know, a lot of small business owners, we put all our heart and effort into the small business and we sometimes neglect to look after ourselves, but at least update the photo so people know that you're probably 10 years older than what you are. But
Right, exactly. So looking forward, what's on the development path? What's out there in terms of what you guys are going to be working on, or even a wish list of some things you'd love to do down the track?
Yeah, so one of the things that what a lot of advisors don't understand is we are the white label. So you can white label our site. We are the white label for the Australian Stock Exchange, Colonial First State and Australian Super websites.
Okay.
So we will be ramping up and we will be putting more effort into referral programs.
Right.
Across those entities. So we don't, whilst we get a lot of traffic through advisor ratings, someone like an Australian Super gets more traffic than us.
Yep.
In terms of, so there's going to be more effort on terms of lead generation, especially as part of the quality of advice review. A lot of these institutions are going, who should we be partnering with from a referral perspective?
Yeah.
So watch this space in 2023. The other area that we've been getting a bit of feedback on is, especially if you're a multi-advisor practice, is, Angus, I can't maintain my profile constantly and those sorts of things. So we're going to have functionality where practice managers or marketing managers, you can actually have someone else help manage your profile for you.
Like an admin sort of login.
An admin person. So there's consistency across, especially if you're a practice and you want that consistency of tone and voice across the practice. And it's, whilst there's you as the individual, there's also the practice tone that you want to convey as well, what you're good at. So there'll be that to make it easier for those. And the other thing is, I know we send out every year landscape reviews. We get everybody to basically comment and thank you to every advisor that does this, because it's probably what we think is the most in-depth bit of research in the industry, but it's also the most surveyed bit of research is advisors leaving comments on things like research houses and platforms and which tech providers do they use and what do they think of them. So we're basically bringing that online, and that's going to be more dynamic, and we're looking to onboard and making sure that when you're an advisor, you can directly be onboarded with one of those solutions. So those are the sorts of, I guess they're probably the three big initiatives that we're looking forward to in 2023 that will really help advisors. So some significant improvements, I'd like to think.
Look, it's exciting because one of the things that people always ask, Peita, how do you come across all this tech? And the thing is, outside of pure advice tech, it's really easy because there's so many comparison websites out there. Like you and I both use Slack, right, in our business, but you'd only have to do, if you type Slack versus in Google, and that's all you need to type, there'll be all of these websites that come up with all these things. Like it's all done for you. In our world, that's not quite the case, and so to give people more and more tools that help them do that research where somebody else has already done a bit, and I mean, I guess that's what this podcast has been for too, is just giving them the insight, giving them a starting point. Anyway, we can help, advisors.
So think of that. Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's just basically, and this goes back to my One Big Switch days. That was my previous job in terms of that collective group experience to go, how do you together help each other? And don't get me wrong, there's some great platforms. Obviously, Ensemble, Performer XY does that as well. We will be we're having an element of doing that. We'll be basically ensuring that that's all up to date. All the data's up to date on every single AdviceTech, every single platform, and those sorts of things. So advisors at least have that at their hands when they're doing it. And then we'll go down to asset managers. So around that. So that's a big bit of work, Peita, but we're bringing 6-7 years of data online and making it a little bit more interesting and dynamic.
And it is an interesting, the asset manager one is interesting to me because, we've got research houses, but those tools are designed when you know exactly what you're looking for. It doesn't help you work out what you want to look for.
No.
It doesn't help you shortlist. It helps you when you've already got the shortlist. Gee, let me compare A, B, and C. Yes. But if you're trying to work out what the shortlist is, good luck. It's just
what is that? I think there's 4,000 or 5,000 investment options across different platforms. Some of the platforms have the options, some don't. So are you on that platform? And also then, as I said, there's 2,000-3,000 asset managers, and it's a minefield. So
yeah, absolutely. Anything else we've missed? We haven't covered?
No, I don't think so. I think that's. I think we've covered quite a bit, but I love these chats. So, and keep them up, Peita, because I like. Actually, I was going to lead in with, because I'm feeling inspirational, and for those that don't know, it's a Monday that we're doing this podcast. So every morning I always have this quote that comes up, and I thought I'd share a quote that comes up on my phone, and conveniently it was from Florence Nightingale.
Oh.
And it said, so for some inspiration, whenever you're actually hearing this, is ignite the mind's spark to rise the sun in you.
Nice.
Which is actually from Florence Nightingale. So yeah, that would be my, if you're listening to this on the bus on the way to work or something, there you go. I got inspiration from it. So maybe if one or two other readers do, then great.
Fantastic. I love it. All right, Advice Explorers, if you'd like to find out more about advisor ratings, and I highly recommend you should, then the website link is in the episode show notes, along with Angus's LinkedIn details. So feel free to poke and prod him, and I'm sure he'll direct you to anybody if you need assistance or have some questions. Thank you so much for joining us. We've become an even more compact industry, and it's become even smaller and tighter knit, I think, because there's just less of us. And so, any more tools we have, any more reasons we have that help us both connect with each other and for each other and then to the public, an absolute win from my perspective. So kudos on all that Advisor Ratings are doing, and I can't wait to see the next evolution. It's exciting.
Thank you, Peita. Yes, it's very exciting. It's an exciting time to be an advisor.
It is. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
So, are you a current user of Advisor Ratings? Are you on the website? Have you updated your profile? Do you agree or disagree with what we were chatting about the app? Please, please, please share your insights on the Ensemble community platform, as I know I'd love to hear your take. And if you have any tips, about things that you've done that you feel have worked, or even profiles you've seen that you think rock, if you see one and you think this is fabulous, I love what they've done, hey, why don't we profile them on the community platform and help everybody else see what's working, for some of the advisors doing really well out there. Now, in terms of my thoughts, look, I'm just going to be honest and share what this has sort of initiated out of me. The process of updating your profile, and other information on a tool like Advisor Ratings, I think is just such a great way to keep all of our internet presence, really fresh and up to date. And it's prompted me to do that across the board, of all of the things that I'm on. So that's LinkedIn, social media, website, and everything. So, rewriting your bio, updating your LinkedIn profile, adding some personality. Do a video. Doesn't have to be long. Just do a quick video that really shares either your process, the people you talk about, a story that you think's really valuable, anything to just personalize your content. And I'm honestly going to use this episode as a prompt to revitalize the way in which I describe myself and what I do. Then once you've sort of done the basics, then perhaps write a blog, and maybe a series of videos. You could load them up into YouTube and then embed them in that Advisor Ratings profile. Create something really appropriate for your target market, and add that to your profile too, right? And then, let's not stop there. Add the link to your Advisor Ratings profile, to your email footer, to your website. And look, this has all prompted me to really carefully think about how we can organically ask for testimonials and feedback. And I'm even considering whether there's a way to just ask for feedback first, right? So, hey, what did you like? What do you feel we could do better? What did you think of this element of the process? And then once they've done that, then asking them if they wouldn't mind capturing that as a testimonial on a site like Advisor Ratings. They've already done the thinking, they've already captured it. They won't be writing it from scratch. They're just sort of giving that summary of their feedback. So that's sort of the way I'm starting to think about how we'll just embed this in our process, so that we can really capture people's insights into how we do things. Because like we were saying in the conversation there, for me, I'm less interested in the, yeah, Peita's great feedback, right? I'm interested in the insight into what worked. Wow, the way they did this just made such a difference for the decision we had to make on that, right? So something that's really insightful will mean you'll attract the right people by that testimonial. So look, I'd love to hear the ways in which you either ask for or are thinking about asking for getting testimonials. So please reach out on the Ensemble community platform and share any ideas you have. Now, as Angus and I were talking about the importance of understanding our sort of key values, maybe our unique skills, and how narrowing down on these can really make writing your profile and attracting the right clients to you so much easier. It reminded me actually of a wonderful exercise we went through with our whole team. This was a team building exercise where we got the whole team to complete or individually complete a Clifton Strengths questionnaire, and then got together. We talked about our respective profiles, how they came together as a team, and how we could really take advantage of that. So today's Curiosity Corner app that I think could be really helpful is Clifton Strengths. You can find them at gallup.com/Clifton Strengths. Now, you may have already done some sort of profiling tool before. Maybe it's like a Myers-Briggs test, or you've gone to an interview and they've, poked and prodded you and tested to see if you're a serial killer sort of thing. We've all done those sort of tests. And look, they can get you thinking about how you interact with the world and maybe specifically with your team, right? The thing I always struggled with them is that I felt they didn't really identify your uniqueness. In fact, often they attempted to put you in a particular box, right? And you were one of 4 boxes or areas in the box or whatever, which just sort of didn't resonate with me. Whereas the Clifton Strengths testing is trying to identify your unique combination of traits, your personality DNA or even talent DNA. And in fact, I would describe it as capturing your superpower. It's so incredibly powerful to do this, as it can really help you enunciate why you, amongst all the advisor options someone can choose from, why you might be the right one for them. Now, when I say unique, the combination of my top 5 strengths that came out when I did the testing, in the specific order that they come out, right? So the top one is the strongest trait and they come down. So the top 5 have the odds of 1 in 33 million of being repeated in somebody else again, right? So this is true uniqueness. It's really capturing what makes you you, right? And not just what makes you you or who you are, how you impact those around you. And as if that insight isn't enough, or exciting enough, to be honest, the content they then send you afterwards, your email newsletters, of course, are tailored to your strengths. And they have headings like what gives you an edge over others, how you contribute something unique. All of this stuff is incredibly valuable in framing your profile in something like advisor ratings. So I'd really encourage you to check it out. There's a cost for the test, but look, I think it's about $50 or $60. It's not crazy, but it's one of those times where it's weirdly accurate. It's slightly disturbing how accurate it is, but it also helps enunciate things you might have trouble actually describing about how you do things and how you interact with people. So I'd really encourage you to check it out. And if you are curious, if it prompts you to do the test and you're really curious to discuss your results, once you've done it, then please reach out on the Ensemble platform, as I'd be happy to compare and debate our relative profiles and really think about how we can utilize those insights. So please don't be shy. Do reach out. Welp, that's all we've got for this week. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you'll get your AdviceTech fix automatically sent to you each Friday. And if you'd like a speaker to run your audience through client portals, these are the next big thing in AdviceTech. It's what everybody's talking about, but not just about portals, but a step-by-step process to work out how, advisors need one and how to implement them in the practice. Then I have both a webinar version and a full-blown in-person masterclass to sort that out for advisors. So if this is of interest, then please reach out to me on LinkedIn on /PeitaMD, PEITAMD. Otherwise, I'll look forward to turning up in your earbuds next week. And remember, Advice Explorers, stay curious.